All right. At the outset, I want to note agreement with Ms. Lebinsky that I believe the over 4.5 year custodial time and the length of time it's taken to get to this point to get everyone answers for today.
This verdict hits like a thunderclap. Guilty on every count. Murder, assault, burglary, the words echo through the courtroom. But behind that verdict lies a story of heartbreak. A woman known for helping others, taken in the most brutal way. Today, justice is coming full circle, and it's not going to be gentle. Stay tuned. This case is about pain, betrayal, and punishment with no way out.
Count 1, murder, we the jury find the defendant guilty of murder. As to count 2, felony murder, aggravated assault, we the jury find the defendant guilty of felony murder. As to count 3, felony murder, false imprisonment, we the jury find the defendant guilty of felony murder. As to count 4, felony murder, burglary in the first degree, we the jury find the defendant felony murder. As to count 5, aggravated assault, we the jury find the defendant guilty of aggravated assault. As to count 6, false imprisonment, we the jury find the defendant guilty of false imprisonment. As to count 7, burglary in the first degree, we the jury find the defendant guilty of burglary.
And so we will move to the sentencing hearing, beginning with the state. If you have any evidence in aggravation or any statements for the record, I would ask you to start with the ranges and issues of merger that you think are here, as well as the state's recommendation, and then present any evidence that you have.
Yes, sir. Count 1 is malice murder, so that would be possible punishment of life without possibility of parole. Counts 2, felony murder. Counts 3, felony murder. Count 4, felony murder would vacate as a matter of law. Count 5, that is aggravated assault. That would be 20 years.
Why would 5 not merge? 5 is based on this assault with a sharp object.
Well, Your Honor, I think I didn't.
The prosecution's tone says it all: life without parole. No sympathy, no compromise. Each count may sound technical, but every number represents real pain. The state's message is clear: this crime shook an entire community, and the punishment will reflect that. What do you think? Does justice mean mercy or finality?
I think if it were only based on the conviction of the felony murder count.
Felony murder is already vacated.
Right.
And the malice murder is based on causing the death, stabbing her with a sharp object. The aggravated assault is stabbing her with a sharp object.
Okay. Then that would vacate, or that would merge.
All right.
That would merge. Count 6, I believe, is false imprisonment. That would be 10 years. Count 7 is burglary, and that would be 20 years. And I don't believe any of those would merge. So, Your Honor, at this point, we would recommend the court sentence the defendant to life without the possibility of parole, plus 30 years to be run consecutively on counts 6 and 7, Your Honor. Those would be our recommendations. We don't have any specific evidence to call in aggravation. However, we would like to present 2 victim witness statements to the court. Could we just go ahead?
Floor is yours.
Thank you. First, we would present Alton Conway.
All right. Good morning, sir. If you could just spell your name for the record, and then if there's anything that you would like to be heard on as the impact of this case on you, and what you think the appropriate sentence is here, now's your opportunity.
Thank you, Judge. I'm Kay's brother. I hope I can make it through without kind of falling apart. That's okay. I want to let you know a little bit about who my sister was. She had some tough points in her life. Our parents were divorced, and she was a crying towel for my mom. And nothing against my mom, just she was there with my mom. Her first child, Dickie, was drowned when he was 2 years old. Her now deceased ex-husband told me one time, said we had 3 children trying to make our marriage work, and they had 3 wonderful children. But that depth and pain let her understand that and made her a champion for the less fortunate. And she was so quiet and so humble in the way she did it. She served at Hosea Williams, Feed the Hungry, for years, was friends with Hosea Williams.
When the victim's brother speaks, the courtroom goes silent. His sister, Kay, helped the homeless, fed the hungry, and asked for nothing in return. And now he's here, fighting back tears, asking, "What's the price of a life?" It's raw, real, and heartbreaking. You can feel years of love and loss in his every word.
But to give you an example, there was a family that came through Atlanta, and they were robbed of everything, including their airplane tickets, their luggage, their wallets. They had nothing. And this was announced on the 6 o'clock news. I saw it. 11 o'clock, I'm going to look at the news again. They said an anonymous lady came and made them whole. The next day, I'm visiting with my sister. And I said, "That was a wonderful thing you did for that family." She said, "How did you know? I'm your big brother." Just, I knew. We're so thankful for Sandy Springs and what they did to the unknown hours that weren't spoken in this courtroom and weren't identified, hours after hours. But one of the things they did was they went through the homeless camps because they knew what my sister did, trying to show the picture and identify the suspect. They discovered after a period who she was, and they started reaching out, living the life of Kay, where she might have gone, what she might have done. Kay, in her life, I don't think we had two family members, I think, that may not have had at some point not met Kay's expectations. One was my wife and one was my son, who's in the back of the courtroom. Everyone else at one time or another had some sort of thing with Kay and her expectations. The unfortunate thing in my life is we had gone through that situation. We're in the middle of that. And time passes by. I was in the middle of that when she was killed. And I'll never be able to go back. My wife and I were at Costco and we were going home, and she said, "Let's go by and see Kay." And I said, "Give her a week or two, and then we'll go by and see her." And that was the same day that Katie found her. The same day. Cannot go back. I cannot get my sister. But the folks she would have helped. And I hear the conversation about $114,000 for DNA. Sandy Springs would have spent more, and that's so thankful that they were angry and hungry enough to protect their citizens that they did that. What is the price of life? $115,000? No, it should never be brought up. It hurt me to hear that said, and it hurt me that someone would use that in defense of, in the words of Reverend Holmes Borders, when you know that you know that you know. And that was about Jesus Christ, but that's also in life, you know that you know that you know. And I had to hear some of this ragdoll confusing, and that's the only thing that the defense can do, is put a cloud over the evidence, but it was obvious. Judge, it is so obvious, and you did a wonderful job being extremely partial, giving every leniency to the defense that you could, but you know that you know that you know. I want the maximum so that
Kay's daughter takes the stand, and it's devastating. "I lost my best friend," she says. She begs for the maximum sentence, not out of hate, but to make sure no one else feels this pain. That's not vengeance, that's protection.
So that he does not enter the society of Atlanta again.
Thank you, sir, for being here.
Thank you.
Your Honor, next the state would call Catherine Grieglis.
Hi, Your Honor. My name is Katie Griglas, KatiegryGlas. I will just add, this has been the most horrific thing to happen to me and my family. For my mom to live, not be here for her grandkids, and to see them grow up, and me lose my best friend, and that one person that just knows you and understands you and is there for you, has been the hardest. So I just plead with you that you give him the maximum sentence possible. So this never has to happen to anyone else, because I just would not be able to handle knowing someone else had to go through this as I did. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Your Honor, at this time, that concludes the state's presentation.
Anything to present on behalf of the defense?
In 2018, James Jones would have been 22 years of age. In June of 2018, she would have just turned 22.
The defense shifts gears, portraying the defendant as a young, struggling transgender woman who's faced violence and rejection. It's a plea for understanding, but can trauma excuse murder? That's the question hanging in the air.
She would have turned 22 in April of that year. So she was very young. She has no prior criminal history, no real prior criminal history. She was working at the U-Haul since she was in high school. She does have family support. Her sister, Adrienne, is here to support her. She's been here for many days during the trial. Miss Jones tells me, and she goes by Priscilla, is that since she was a child, she never felt that she was a man. She always felt that she was a woman, and that it made life extremely difficult for her. She had difficulty with her home life because her parents had difficulty understanding, of course, her gender identity. And the moment she could, she set about trying to obtain the means to transition, which she has been doing since she became adult. Life has also not been easy for her. Life is extremely difficult for transgender people in Atlanta. It is not an accepting place to live. She has been in custody in the Fulton County Prison, Fulton County Jail, not ACDC, Your Honor, but in the Fulton County Jail for very, very close to 5 years. And during that period of time, she has been stabbed. She has been sexually assaulted. She has been abused in more ways than this court could probably begin to imagine. She maintains her innocence, Your Honor, and sends her deepest sympathy to the family of Miss Thomason. I would ask the court to sentence her to a life with the possibility of parole, and to take account of the fact that she has no prior criminal convictions. On count 6, then, to sentence her to 10 years to serve 3 consecutive, with the balance probated.
Then the judge delivers the hammer. This is the stuff of nightmares, he says. Life without parole. No chance at freedom. Final. Justice in its harshest form. Would you have ruled the same?
And on the burglary in the first degree, count 7, 10 years to serve 8 consecutive, with the balance probated. Is there anything further on which the court would like to hear me?
Any further evidence on behalf of the defense or statements to present on
No,
behalf of the defendant or family members?
no, thank you, Your Honor.
And the state has the right to any rebuttal.
No, Your Honor.
All right. At the outset, I want to note agreement with Ms. Lubinsky that I believe the over 4.5 year custodial time and the length of time it's taken to get to this point, to get everyone answers for today, is, in my mind, unacceptable. And I would express sympathy on my part and on behalf of the court that it's taken this long to get to this day for everyone involved. But as it comes to the defendant here, that's where my sympathy ends. This is not a hard decision for me. I believe what's been presented here from the state, the circumstances of this case are that this is this stuff of nightmares. And I believe the defendant has now been found responsible for all these horrors and is still today denying and refusing to accept any any responsibility for the part that was played. And so, frankly, upon being convicted for something like this, I don't think that any civilized society would tolerate someone walking amongst them and walking amongst us ever again. So with that, I will, after considering the record, the facts as presented, and all the circumstances of this case, I would accept the state's recommendation, and I would impose a sentence on count 1 of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Counts 2 through 4 vacate by operation of law. Count 5 merges into count 1. And counts 6 and 7 would be 10 years and 20 years to serve, respectively, both to run consecutive to each other and to count 1. Is there anything further to be heard by the state for the record?
No, Your Honor.
Anything on behalf of the defense, Ms. Levinsky?
And with that, it's over. A guilty verdict, a grieving family, and a lifetime behind bars. Justice feels complete, but no one walks away whole. If this case hit you hard, hit that like, share your thoughts, and subscribe for more intense courtroom breakdowns. Because here, every verdict tells a story.